subcommittee to order. Does anybody have an agenda?
I just pulled it up.
What's next?
So call to order.
Approval of the agenda.
I approve the agenda.
Yes, hearing no objection to the agenda, no changes suggested, the agenda is approved.
Adrian already approved it.
It's approved. So that's-
General business, comment from public issues not on today's agenda. Is there anyone?
No,
Online?
nope.
No one in the public in the room? Item 4. Review of the draft concept map in VHB and draft memo. Mike Miller. So we just got this map. You
Yes.
got it online, and here it is. I guess we need to do these things sort of simultaneously.
So, and just end goal here is the right combination of map and memo that will go as a recommendation to city council.
Yes, and I think we missed the meeting for this Wednesday, so it would have to be the following Wednesday. We could get it on the agenda, right?
It was always intended for, it was always intended for the 28th.
Okay,
right.
all right,
Instead of
that's
next,
Yeah.
instead of next week.
That's perfect. Just want to make sure I
Right,
understand the
meeting.
process.
This coming week, but that's just on city plan.
Okay, okay, good. All right, that's good.
Sorry, I'm just trying to pull up a copy of the memo.
Really an edited version of the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I've read it and I can
Is
speak to it, like,
Yeah, no, it makes good sense.
I think actually, is this, can I take a look at this one?
That
Versus-
is your
different.
draft. That is the actual one.
Well, I
If you-
think actually it was, everything was this,
I can take that and go make copies if
You
you
know,
need
it'd
me
be
to.
awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
let me
that
just-
would be really
let me
good.
just trying to find out,
'Cause
and I'll make a
Much.
couple copies.
I mean, basically, if I remember when I read it correctly, like there were a couple, I thought, really good substantive changes in the bullet points. The kind of thing that I want to talk to you folks about is like the second half, I think, is that Mike's language around kind of the process and related to due diligence and all of those kinds of things. So I'm curious what you think, like, I would almost split those, like those feel like two separate issues. Like we were asked to approve a concept plan and an accompanying memo. And that to me feels a little bit different for what is the continuing due diligence process moving forward of Country Club Road. And I think I actually agree with maybe the process that he's outlined, but I think it should be suggested to the full council in a decision memo put together by Mike. Not us.
It wasn't our charge. Our charge was the concept plan. And I agree that it should be addressed by the council because there's lots of confusion. For example, the actionable plan.
Yeah. I got a copy like yours, by
which
the
we
way.
need to adopt instead of just.
Yes, except, right.
Makes no mention of the phase 2. There's no sort of phase structure at all. It does have recommendations for additional action. None of which mentions a second.
Right.
Process, but we can decide on all of that, but I think we need to
Be clear.
decide and clear it up.
I think, what I wonder if it's semantics, I wonder if it's not, but like, it does talk about tiers, right? Like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 tasks, like on this
Yes,
part, and I
yes, it
think
does.
maybe, I'm not sure about this, but I think maybe people have been conflating or in phase 2 and tier 2, but it also talks about the recommended sequencing, that these are not necessarily in sequential order.
Right, where are they?
That's
What
on page 30.
I think I wrote in my comments that, and maybe it is confusing, maybe it does need to be separated, but I want to be very clear to the public and for us that what the process is that we are going to take and that it's okay, that process that we're going to take,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like it's not against any rules, it's not against any regulations, like those were recommendations. And I just wanted to be clear that this map is part of a process. And maybe having Mike explain like then what that process is and how this map that we were charged with layers into like the overall process, because I think that's where we're getting held up and that's where, the most part of, the comments we get from the public is that we're not following the process, but we are.
Well, I mean, right here.
I just want to be very clear that that's.
Yeah, I
what
mean,
we're
right
doing.
here on the page 30 of the actual plan, where it lists out the tiers, basically all the different tasks that need to happen for due diligence, it says these tiers are intended to be considered flexible and organic. If opportunities arise for tier 2 or 3 recommendations sooner, the city should respond accordingly.
Yeah, no, the whole thing is filled
Yeah.
with language like that.
Yeah.
And we should take that language seriously. The original, approach that the council took, I think Mike described this in one of our recent council meetings. We had a choice between doing everything ourselves
Yes,
upfront, including a detailed plan where
Yep.
we would maybe bring people into the council, but we would propose before we went to developers. And then we would say, like Dorset has done
Yes.
recently, here, build this.
right,
Versus
So long.
what
First
we're
printer
actually
wouldn't
doing,
do it.
which is
thank you.
we're doing some of the, thank you, the preliminary work. So as to make participation in an RFP more attractive to developers, because they're saying, oh, a lot of the work has been done already. Less cost for us, we're interested. And so that, to me, that suggests, as I think Adrian suggests in her comments, that the next step is to talk to some developers in a preliminary way. Say, okay, look at this and give us some, indication of where this needs to go, what's feasible from your perspective, and then we adjust that. And maybe then the next step is either to actually craft an RFP, based on our needs and wants and what developers have told us. Or have another process, have a, some other sort of activity that involves the public or, interested.
Yeah.
Question.
I mean, I think I think that is a really good summary of where we're at. And I think where the tension we're running into is certain members of our community feel like they want that kind of first approach where it's all, we're taking on that development role of like, here are all the different things. This is exactly, here's all the due
Right,
diligence.
we're
And,
planning
you know,
it in detail.
and, that in fact isn't what's happening. I don't think that that's the track that we're on. And so, providing clarity around that, I think is really helpful. The only amendment I would make to what you're saying is the next step. I think that there are concurrent next steps of
Yeah.
pursuing the growth center designation.
Oh, yeah,
tip,
absolutely.
right? Meanwhile, we can be thinking with developers.
Yeah,
about-
those have to be done.
Right,
parallel.
okay.
We need to keep going on the growth center.
I think it just needs to be very clear that what this plan is that we're proposing is. It's in alignment with, growth center approval. I mean, we're doing everything correct. Like, there's nothing that we're doing that's, out of line with, you looked at the application, we're in alignment with the application, we'll get more details for the TIF. It's all part of the process.
I also think it's important to remember that like the growth center application was approved before it was rejected. And it was really, I think, rejected on like a statutory, which is legitimate, but it's a kind of a technicality that I think is being addressed. And
Yeah.
it's not to say there aren't other things, but we should remember it made it through.
Yes.
The thing that hung it up
Yeah.
is being fixed.
Yeah, we have a process that's been defined for an amendment. There's a legal argument, actually.
Yes.
As to why it's
Yep.
appropriate, and we're following it, so. All right, so we need to approve language
Okay.
and.
Well,
map.
Take a look.
what I would, again, can we just go back to this
Yeah.
idea of like, we've got language and map, but then this whole second part, broadly, the subcommittee is recommending the approval of the CCR actionable plan. Again, I feel like that's a kind of separate thing from what we're talking about, because what we were charged with was just the concept, revising concept A.
Yeah, no, I'm just reading this. So we are recommending. We are recommending these the early half of this at very least. With any edits that we come up with today. As well as the new map with any edits that we come up today. Through the council, and we can then unofficially. Not in a document that has to do with the concept, but we can comment to the council on what the options for the next steps are.
Yeah, I think what I would suggest is that we make a recommendation to the council to adopt this, whatever the language ends up being and the map. As an amendment to the actionable plan,
Yeah, I think that's what it would.
right?
Yeah,
And then there is a separate, I don't know how to do this, but I would say like a decision memo from Mike outlining. Basically asking for acceptance or approval. Of the actionable plan and the process that he has described here. I just don't like to see the two
Yeah.
things mixed,
yeah, no, I
right?
agree.
Like one is the concept that's part of the actionable plan. And then there's, really what he's asking for is the council to approve the actionable plan. And I think that should happen through a different vote.
Because we didn't approve the actionable plan because of this. So we pulled this out and we said, we're not gonna approve the actionable plan today, whatever that meeting was.
Yeah.
Because we need to update this map, we're not comfortable with it. And he was asking for approval, like
Right.
he needs to have this approval of the actionable plan, so. I think it could be a two-step process.
Yeah.
We approve the map, which is what we were all held up against.
Yes.
We approve it, it's beautiful, it's part of the, actual plan, then step two. Mike comes and says, okay, now that you've approved concept A, it's gonna be included in the actionable plan, will you now approve the CCR actionable plan? Now that's a part of it, so I think it is a two-step process.
And,
I like that, sorry, I just had to process
No, it's-
verbally.
and I also think like approve it. But also like what the process that he has outlined here, because it
That's
would
his-
provide a level
yes.
of clarity to people about like, no, we actually have a plan. This is what we're doing.
Yes. Yep, so we keep this, one memo is specifically on the map, and we talk about the map, why we, all the reasons why we updated it. Then he has a second memo, a decision memo, talking about the actual plan and the process and the why. I think the why is very important, and that we're still in alignment with all the regulations around the growth center application. We're not doing anything that's, not in alignment. I think it's very important to say. And that there's still more information we'll have to collect throughout the process for TIF and work with developers and et cetera, so. But yeah, I think there's some two different approvals. I think that's good. I like that.
So we will look at these two things on the map and the memo
Yeah.
and make any edits.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw what I did, but
Yeah,
I think there's language in the application itself. Yeah. In other words, we have an amendment to the actionable plan, but the application needs to be revised to reflect this, and that ought to be in our statement, don't you think?
I think that we should leave that to Mike.
Oh.
Right, like that we,
Not that-
because what we're saying is this is the concept that council is approving. And his application to the growth center should be in alignment with the concept that
That's what I'm saying, shouldn't that be in our memo?
I think we could say that. I wouldn't,
Oh, no, not these actual changes.
Yeah.
No. Just note that,
yes,
that we would expect that the application would reflect.
yes, what we've outlined in the concept. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Okay.
I guess what you understand what I'm saying, but I would not want to see us wordsmithing applications like that's his job.
Absolutely,
And that is not currently in the.
that part is not.
Yes.
So I think
Okay.
we'd like to add that, but
Okay.
right now, we're talking about whether or not to include these last two paragraphs. Beginning with Broadway.
So again, I think we should cut that,
Yeah.
and Mike should take that and put it into a separate memo asking us for approval of, asking the council for recommending that the council approve this concept plan.
Oh.
Or no, I'm sorry, that's completely
Actionable
wrong.
plan.
Actionable plan.
Can I just,
Yeah.
it's attorney chicken scratch.
Yep.
But at least the beginning of this last paragraph,
Yep.
there's ways to revise it, so it's what you're recommending. What I'm just hearing you talk about right now, I don't know if you want to try and read it, or if you want me to try and read it off.
Why don't you try and read it?
Okay, so broadly, the subcommittee is recommending amendment of the CCR actionable plan that was presented in June 2023 with the revised map, right? This revised map. You guys can wordsmith that because I don't know what phrasing you're using for it. As well as the changes to the goals and concept plan above and qualification of the due diligence steps outlined in that document. And then you can keep in this, Whitenberg recommended a set of next steps, blah, blah, blah. We recommend that council endorse a revised path, which still includes thorough due diligence, but in a different form, right? And this is what you were just talking about making sure that you have, you receive proposals from multiple potential developers, and from that, you then develop the RFP, right? So that finishes out that paragraph. So you're recommending the revised path. And at the end, add, further, we propose that the application, I just say the application, you can specify what application, be amended in consistency with this subcommittee's recommendations.
Right.
So it takes this last paragraph and twists it. So it's, you're recommending, here's what we recommend be changed in the actionable plan.
Yes.
So
To be clear, like, I don't think we're making that recommendation. I think
So you don't-
Mike is making that recommendation. Because
Okay.
like what we're doing, what this subcommittee's been charged with is revising the concept plan. That's what we've been asked to
Okay.
do. And so
Okay.
I think as planning director,
Okay, I can give him these notes.
yeah,
So, but you do still want a really clear statement in your memo somewhere of exactly what the subcommittee is recommending.
I
Is
think
all
we've
I'm
done
saying.
that.
Okay,
We've done that. This entire memo, up into the word broadly, achieves the charge of this subcommittee.
okay, cool.
All we were tasked to do was revise this map and provide language that accompanied it.
I can give these notes
Yeah.
to Mike.
Mike should take all of this and put it into a separate decision memo that says the council is now, is it approving? Yes.
I think we're
Approving
yes.
the actionable plan and accepting Mike's recommendation of this process moving forward, which is more iterative and flexible then.
So here's what we recommend in the memo.
Great.
To that end, the subcommittee recommends, I got that, recommend that the following language and accompanying maps be adopted as an amendment to the actionable plan. So that's our recommendation. This map
Yes.
and the following language, and the language is in the memo. The attached maps identify the site's environmental constraints and delineate buildable areas suitable for a mix of housing types. These areas are surrounded by both active and passive recreational spaces designed to enhance the livability and vibrancy of future housing on the site. I think it's important that people understand why. I mean, I'm glad that's in there. Why they're not continuous. Why they're, isolated. Some of that. The following goals should guide future planning and development of the site. And this is an amendment to the actionable plan.
Yes.
Maintain an appropriate balance between housing and active passive recreation. Create a minimum of 300 housing units. The phrase that is in the
Yes.
application is 300 to 500.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
I literally, when I put that, I thought of that I just put it in frankly as a placeholder for a point of conversation.
Yeah.
Is there a different way to phrase it?
No, I
Like,
think minimum of
Minimum.
300 is. Got to start. Include a mix of housing types, including multifamily buildings up to 5 stories, modest single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes. The city remains open to alternative ways to achieve high density. Next point, emphasize density, particularly on the lower portion of the property, recognizing that multifamily buildings will likely be necessary to achieve overall density goals within the buildable areas. I think that's fine. That was
Grand compromise.
the grand compromise. relocation of the main entry road in the map so that it passes around the far western boundary of buildable area A. And that was in order to maximize potential use of the flat,
Yeah,
flat area.
yeah, exactly.
And the final point is ensure flexibility in the design of active recreation areas currently envisioned for the eastern portion of the property and allow for potential additional recreational space within buildable areas, provided that housing density goals are not compromised. Again, part of the.
So just a quick go back to the relocation of the main entry road. It says western boundary of building area A. But that is not, we took out
Oh,
those,
right, we did take out that.
we took out the designations of
Designation.
these, so we might want to just western boundary of high density.
Well, we didn't take them out.
Yeah,
Mike has taken them out in the map.
I just want to make sure because it's not correlated.
I just want to make sure I have my directions right. This is in fact the eastern portion of the property,
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes a difference, but what if I'm looking at this and looking at the map, there is no buildable area.
Right.
You might just want to say western boundary of,
The lower buildable, it is the lower buildable area,
Yeah.
right?
just, yeah, lower buildable area, like
yeah.
high density, like whatever, how we just can correlate to the
The
map.
far western boundary of the lower buildable area, word A,
Yeah, we want-
to leave it.
Yep.
Good catch.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at the map while.
These goals provide a clear direction for the community and future development. However, the specific means of achieving them should remain flexible, informed by further due diligence regarding site conditions, infrastructure costs, available funding, and market demands.
ChatGPT.
Did we miss anything? I don't.
I mean, when we just think about what the goal here was to not be stuck with prescribed housing types while wanting to balance a certain number of units with recreation areas. And if that's enough for the growth center application, then we've done what we're supposed to do.
Because we will get more specific once we meet with developers and
Right.
have market demand and be
Right.
realistic of what could be built in these bubbles, which is exactly what we were charged with doing.
You know,
So,
and honestly, for what it's worth, I'm doing this exact same thing at work with VHB or like a property that we own up in Grand Isle where they're doing. Actually, no, we didn't go with VHB. Somebody else, but like they're doing the exact same thing, like a site constraints of like,
Yeah.
what could you build on and how much could you build based upon environmental conditions and zoning permit anyway. So it's like, you can give this to a developer and say, what can you do with this?
yes.
Yeah.
I think it makes total sense.
I guess the only thing that caught my eye when I looked at the map was that there was no mention of recreation, and it was just my whole point. It's covered in the narrative, I think,
Yeah.
covered in the memo. And the only thing I worry about is that no one will read the memo, and they will all look at the map. They'll say, oh, okay, this is what we're doing, and they'll say, gee, that's really, there's no change there, what's that little thing at the top, you know, that's letting them. But I don't know how you would change that.
I don't know why they
You'd
didn't.
have to
pull
add a
it,
notation or something.
A little bit.
Well, you'd have to
It-
add a notation
No.
or something. I don't.
Good, yeah.
So I think that part of it is, great. So this recreation area is gonna be a more sort of built up style recreation, right? Structure more dependent potentially recreation. Whereas when it sounds like you're talking about passive recreation and open green spaces, it may end up being that some of these spaces become part of like various, like the developers do some of that in between, and it's still open to other people to use,
Yeah,
right? So versus this would be sort of like the recreation department in conjunction with the hub type situation for this, whereas these would be a different, more organic style
right. The
situation.
problem is that this high density area here
Mhm.
is very flat land.
Yeah.
The last non-flooding flat area in the city.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
And so I spent a great deal of time and energy in the last meeting urging us to acknowledge that we ought to preserve that for as long as we possibly can. And unless the developers insist that they can't make the project work without building on that land. on that
Okay.
Portion of the site. They can certainly build on the perimeter and stuff, but they're, they're gonna love building on a flat property. And I just wanted to, so part of the goal of last meeting was to, of the entire subcommittee actually, was to discuss that
Right.
issue.
Okay, so, but
And we've
my
we've
point,
handled it,
yeah, no, and that's why I'm just saying, keeping, when you were talking about the recreation spaces in between here,
No,
no.
I thought that's what you were just now talking about.
This big orange spot.
No, I know, never mind.
I think we're
I-
actually, we're in the place that we need to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't know how you would handle it
Yeah.
otherwise. I mean, but we have two ways of handling it. And it's
Yeah.
important that, I mean, we know that.
I think we'll have to trust the process when we meet developers that this flat land should be integrated with recreation.
The developers are gonna read the memo.
They're gonna get it.
Right, and they're, even if it wasn't in the memo, they're gonna look at this and say, hey, what about this, right? And like,
Well, that'll be in the, I mean, we have an RFP to write.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the RFP will be-
So I'm happy with it. So we have made the one edit to the western boundary of the lower buildable area on the relocation of the main entry road. And we have ended the memo with the last italicized paragraph on page 2, right before the word Broadway. Everything else, this has been omitted.
but what about the part that you were talking about the edits to the application?
Yeah, I think we need to add a line
About that.
somewhere. Maybe it could become a bullet point. The following goals should guide future planning and
Well,
development. site.
Actually, what about in the last paragraph? It says these goals provide a clear direction for the community and future development, including potential growth center applications or something like that. Or what we're really saying is like the growth
be
center
incorporated.
application.
An alignment?
Well, we could say these goals provide a clear direction for the growth center application as well as for the community at large and future development.
Yeah.
Put the growth center in first.
This is total wordsmithing, but I would put it in last.
Put it in
The
last.
community is more important. It's like for the community, for
Yeah.
future development and for, growth center application, growth or other, applications for state and federal incentives or whatever. Or the growth center application.
With the growth center application and other potential state and federal incentives.
Because that's right. Yes.
That's good.
Did anyone capture it?
For the growth center application, other state and.
For the community, and it's gone future development and
The growth center application.
Yeah.
That can be a comma instead of an and before that. And other potential state or federal incentives, something like that.
Putting in the Oxford comma, right, so.
Sure. And federal,
bored.
state and federal what?
Incentives,
Incentives.
state. Yeah. I'm just combining what
That's good.
the different things you guys are saying in a way that's thorough.
That's why we get along so well.
What's wrong with you?
I don't understand it.
You gotta put it in legal documents or it could mean something
could
completely
be.
different.
Exactly. Each sheet can move.
Mhm.
I rest my case. Okay. So we should vote on this amended language.
Can we just hear that last
Or have
part
a
one more
motion.
time?
The last part, these goals, starting. at the
Yeah.
top. These goals provide a clear direction for the community, future development, and the growth center application, and other potential state and federal incentives.
I would take out.
Take out that other and.
Yeah, exactly. So future development, growth center application and other state and
Growth
federal
center.
incentives.
Exactly. Done. These goals provide a clear direction for the community, future development, the growth center application, and other potential state and federal effects.
Great.
The chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the revised concept A map and the accompanying memo. Or, yeah, we're approving that, or we're recommending. What are we doing? What is the motion? We're entertaining a motion to recommend to the city council the adoption of concept A and the accompanying memo for inclusion in the actionable plan.
Is that what you seconded?
Yep.
As a point of discussion, there's still a bunch of data here on the bottom of it. Yeah. Concept statement.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And it says things like multifamily building, townhome building.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff, I don't know what, I don't know what's required on this concept A map. I mean, we were trying to leave it as flexible as possible, and so a lot of this has to, I mean, the unit count doesn't match, you know, what we.
I think, right, this is just, he's
He's just
just
using.
imposing this on the existing thing, right? So I would think that we could ask him to just remove that.
We could, but what I'm wondering, and I'm just not sure if this is required. If something like this is required.
I don't know, you could. You guys, did you guys already vote on the motion?
No.
No.
Okay, so you can amend the motion to ask. Mike City staff to remove the key,
Right.
as long as that comports with application requirements. Right? Or something like that,
Yeah.
as part of this approval, that if it doesn't agree, then that
Could
could
we-
be amended,
Could
but
we actually ask that the conceptual development summary be removed and then provide Mike with the discretion on the other components of the key?
yeah, I think you could do that.
Because the conceptual development summary is essentially in the memo, right?
Mhm.
Instead of saying it's gonna be 196 units in the multifamily, we're just saying up to 300 units.
So what was your recommendation?
I would recommend that we approve this and strike conceptual development summary. But authorize Mike to finalize the map or to provide Mike with the discretion to determine what else needs to be in the key. Like, does this other stuff need to be there, or? Or we could just say
Yeah,
like,
I think that's reasonable.
Discretion.
so that we're saying we don't want the conceptual development summary in the key. But we leave it to the discretion of the planning staff to determine what else should be in there.
If he feels that the growth center application
Yeah.
requires it.
Yeah.
Maybe we include that language in the minute.
But that's a motion right there.
So we've amended the motion. Did anyone you capture the amendment?
Move to recommend that city council approve the revised concept A map and accompanying memo for inclusion into the actionable plan with,
The conceptual
yep.
development summary.
Hold on, I missed a word. With the maps. Conceptual development summary removed and giving the planning director discretion to amend the map key as needed for the growth center application. It's a little clunky, but I think that's where that went.
That's the story, I think, yeah.
Okay, so Ben.
Yeah, I mean,
amended during discussion.
no, I shouldn't say.
What? Say it.
Well, we, like, the
What-
potential
what do you
areas
think?
and space for advocacy, recognition, celebration, education exists throughout the site, but will be decided by a working group consisting of city stakeholders. Are we still doing that, or are
It's
we
in the
looking?
application.
It is in the
Well,
application.
I meant to mention of. I think mention of that is not specifically that statement. That's in the actual plan.
Right, I felt like I saw a meeting where Mike said it made sense to maybe do it someplace else.
He did say that, but that is not something that, again, it's not part of what
Regard.
we've.
Well, just because it was on the queue.
And-
Yeah,
but
but remember, this is gonna have another full council, right? This is your recommendation. Council can tweak, full council can tweak exactly what this looks like when it comes before them, before it's actually fully incorporated. So the tweaky part, like Michael, way I'm seeing is it, before this goes back to council, Mike will further amend this map per your recommendations. And then council still has full council has another chance to tweak what ends up being in here, where you actually have Mike able to give input on what the
Right.
growth center application requires.
I just
Or
want to see the
not.
map accurately reflect where we are right now.
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, we, like, I don't, we could take, well, I don't have mine. I don't have mine. I mean, I have the application
I'm not,
on
it's,
file. There is language in there
Yeah.
that refers to these things.
yeah,
but,
I don't think we need to.
in a way that reflects the language here.
Yeah.
So,
So I think that motion.
reviewing all that.
Yeah, great.
Are we ready for a vote, as Jack would say? All in favor?
Aye.
Vote. Hearing none. Motion passes.
A successful subcommittee.
No, so efficient.
I think we did the hard work last
Yeah.
time.
No, but this is, I feel this is good.
Well, I mean, it was, we did spend time, and I appreciate your agreeing to spend time on it. I just think it was an important detail.
Yeah,
It's good.
great.
Brought to the fore, and now it's something people pay some attention to, but, this discussion about the next steps is important for the council to have, partly because there is confusion in the community about what's the next step. And whether they're, mandatory or.
And I think part of the, I don't really know this, but I suspect part of the problem is people want like a list of sequential steps of what is next, what's the third step from now. And I don't think that's how this works. I think you can say, I mean, it could work that way, but that's not the track that we've decided. If we're saying we're gonna sketch this out and let developers come back to us and do their own due diligence, then we're not necessarily in control of the sequencing of how that happens.
Yeah.
You know,
What are the chances of getting, I mean, there's an RFP where we're officially inviting developers to give us a serious proposal that we would, review. But this interim thing where we solicit input, sort of broad input. What are the chances that, well, two questions. Who will participate in that and why? And how does that then affect
their ability to,
their ability to respond to the RFP?
we should get
Does
legal
anyone
advice.
have any experience with that?
We should get legal advice on that.
Yeah.
Because you want to have an open, free process without anybody being advantaged. And if you're weighing in on the development of the RFP, that could be problematic.
Yeah, I would definitely get expert advice on that. I mean, I haven't done something like this. I have done RFPs for much smaller projects where we were like, the city hasn't done this in 15 or 20 years. We don't know what the cost is now.
Mhm.
And so we
Yeah.
reached out to known entities to get a sense of the cost so that then we would know what to even apply for funding for the grant. And those people then went through the RFP process. I think, I think talk to somebody who can give you true legal advice on it, but I don't think, as long as that process is disclosed, I'm not sure it's gonna be a problem to get initial ballpark senses from people. I think it's all gonna depend on the language of that invite to various, how you go about that process of getting those bigger picture. What could you build here under today's current costs?
And it's complicated by the fact, I asked Mike, I think this is when this happened at lunch during our last meeting, about meeting with developers, and we were talking about meeting as a group or individually. He said, oh no, you gotta meet individually. Because they don't want to meet as a group.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about their perspective publicly until it, until it's in an official process. So if we have indeed have to meet with them to get their input, if we have to meet with them
Yeah.
individually, it's even trickier.
Though there might be a workaround on this, like in thinking about just the direction with the federal building, like the commission is hiring Samantha Dunn and Jeff Glassberg, who are real estate redevelopment consultants. So like they're working like for right now, like Eric Farrell, who did Canby and Rise.
Yeah.
And is doing the Memorial Block redevelopment, or trying to do the Memorial Block redevelopment in Burlington. They're working with he's working with them, right? Like they're the consultants that interface with the city. They do due diligence, they like do that kind of pre-development logistics. And I bring that up is that either them or people like them who work regularly with developers to move projects forward might actually be the people to ask as opposed to the developers themselves.
Have the go-between?
They could just, they could provide their,
Their point of view.
their experience.
Yeah, or somebody actually.
Not speaking for the developers, but
Right.
for their experience with various developers.
Right. I mean, the other one that I wonder about is like Kathy Byer, who's the head of development for Evernorth. That their tax credits indicated for affordable housing projects, but like when Downstreet does a big project, they do it with Evernorth support. And, in terms of like the affordability component of housing, anyway, like that's somebody who I think there are other people involved in the development world that are not the developers themselves that we could get input from that would prevent us from. I don't know that it's appropriate to be like Eric Farrell, come sit down with us and tell us what you want in an RFP.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily have to ask that question, but. I mean, I would be interested in getting input on, what the major obstacles are for them on this particular piece of property in this timing that we have in mind, as well as anything they would want to contribute to that,
But I think like even just started like conversations with VHB, right? When those guys were here, like I think people like VHB, I certainly Samantha and Jeff, people like that, like they would be able to tell you exactly what the barriers are to the site.
Yeah. So it seems to me we have a treasure trove of information from the city on what we want.
Mike,
And I like it.
Welcome.
I have notes for you.
Bit, you good?
Everybody's
been doing.
I do need to run, but on the other hand, I also need to explain my notes to you, so you don't have to read my chicken scratch.
They're still.
Oh, sure.
Like at least till 4.
It's going well
I'll
though.
run down and make sure everything was okay. There was.
Yep, and I actually
done.
got,
You're done?
yeah,
We're
yeah,
done?
done.
Then I won't worry about it.
We did have a question about the map, the P and the development, those numbers down there, I realized that
They probably went to the previous map.
they did, and they didn't, so we said, let's remove that, but we with you're making any additions to it that you feel are needed for the growth center application.
Yeah, I'll have
we
to,
weren't
I'll
sure.
send this forward. I haven't forwarded it to them yet because I didn't get it till you got it.
Got it when we got it, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go through. We'll make a few final changes.
Sweet.
Medium density. I thought, and other than that, you guys think that
Yeah,
is
the
not
only,
what you're looking for?
yeah, we made some few minor changes. So
Yeah, I
here's the
expected
thing.
you would.
Here's the thing, is like, we would actually like to split this into two separate memos.
Okay,
Like that, what we feel like our charge was to revise concept A and make a recommendation with accompanying language to the council. And I feel like the first part of that memo does it.
okay,
And then the second part, really, I think is a memo that I will definitely support, like a decision memo from you to the council being like, you know, we're gonna put forward a motion that this be an amendment in the actionable plan,
okay,
right? And then I think a decision memo should come from you, asking the full council to approve the actionable plan. And to the degree that you want to, describe the process.
the
moving
conditions that would,
forward. Right.
that would
Because it
mean,
feels like it's two separate things. If
Yep.
one, we were charged specifically with concept A. And once with that's back in the plan, you could ask us to approve the whole thing. Presumably we would, and the degree to which you want to describe the revised path,
Mhm.
I think would be helpful for, just to ensure everybody's got clarity.
perfect,
And that would include, I think.
and you'll take care of the first memo?
I think we approved this.
Oh, you approved it as
We-
it's written,
We approved.
Well,
it
there's some
with
minor
with
edits.
minor edits.
minor edits.
So, but
Oh,
you
okay.
want us, our department to make these
Yes.
tweaks. Okay, great. Glad I
Alright.
wrote those down.
And the memo that Ben was talking about from you to the council would include, I would think, and I think we agree, just a reiteration of that initial decision that the council made on which direction to take.
reiterate the
Whether-
process
whether
based
we
on
did-
that earlier
Whether we
decision.
did all the detail, or whether we did none of the detail, but a lot of the groundwork to attract developers. And that seems to be at the heart of
The second,
the second.
Yes.
The second step.
yep, I will
Next
take care of that.
Minute, we approve minutes, where are we on?
Oh,
the
I just
agenda?
wanted to close it.
Hold on one second. I had it up.
Yes, we had to
I-
approve the minutes for May.
Yeah, I didn't-
Second and
I
May
didn't
9th.
print them out, but
Yeah,
If they were available,
I did.
they're right here, did they see them? Don't have both here. So what do you want to do about the minutes? You want to,
We can, they were emailed to us with,
the other part of.
they were emailed
there,
Today.
I
We can send them to the.
have. Oh,
Did you
this is
grab
a
them?
weird. I don't have them. This just pulled up May 16th, like
I thought I
created
did both
minutes
of them, but I
already.
didn't.
It wasn't the attachments. I don't have an agenda packet, like. I have like a weird. The minutes for today's meeting already created type thing.
That's the agenda.
Yeah, this is how I pulled up the agenda. Let me go back. And look up. I can pull, it should be on the page, right?
No.
Well, no, if I go to the last meeting, they should be attached to the last meeting.
Yeah.
They're not?
I don't know.
That's the policy that I do with all of my committee meetings.
Kind of created these.
I think he posted them, cause I thought I saw stuff coming up. Let me see.
Or I can put them on the consent agenda. For the next full council meeting. Because I'll have to have these minutes as well.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Can send them to.
Oh, we have it.
yeah,
Here.
Wait me a second.
Mike, can I take this opportunity to talk to you about the Historic Preservation Commission and federal building?
Sure.
Sorry.
whatever recommendations the Historic Preservation Commission makes in terms of covenants on the building would be advisory in nature for the design review committee and then
Separate process,
separate process.
right? Separate, I mean, they would fall into it, but the federal process is one thing.
Right,
The zoning is another
Right.
thing, which is what that letter tries to make clear, which is what the original GSA letter
messed up.
totally messed up.
Right, but let me just kind of say it out loud so that I can
Mhm.
make sure that I'm getting it. It's like the Historic Preservation Commission then is the point person for consideration of what the covenants look like on the building that GSA places,
Assuming GSA
decides to listen.
goes with that language.
It was supposed to be, so the Historic Preservation Commission was supposed to have input on that covenant.
Right,
But they sent it to the state sent it back to GSA, and GSA said, okay.
right,
And we're like, hold on here,
right,
you were supposed to ask us, here's our comments, it's basically
Right.
what it is.
Yeah.
And we think, because your covenant is confusing and mixes everything up, it should be written this way, and the question to council was, did we want HPC to have authority to make that decision, or are they gonna make the recommendation to the DRC, and the DRC would make that decision, of whether or not the building can be demolished?
right.
And the truth is that HPC at this point is not your opponent to demolition.
Right.
it-
I just want to be like, it would,
But
this is a
or
very
if it
complicated
changes,
issue for me for a
people
variety of reasons, but like, I would just say like. Right, I want to know who the decision-making authority is.
Wait.
on the
At
building
this
coming
point, if you were going to impact the exterior of the building, you would first have to get an approval, well, I won't say first, you'll have to get approval from both the Historic Preservation Commission based on,
The rehabilitation
Rehabilitation
standards.
and you have to go to the DRC to meet the DRC standards, which, oh, by the way, are the
Are based on the
Rehabilitation
rehabilitation standards. They drafted those, HPC specifically drafted those under the rehabilitation standards, which provided the most flexibility for historic structures. But it's also like, wait, so the Historic Preservation Commission has to meet its obligations, right? It has very specific obligations under the certified local government
Yes,
and the section 106 standards. It
Yes.
has to apply those.
yes,
So that's why it was trying to sort of break those away while also still trying to provide as much flexibility as they felt they were allowed to under the section 106 review when there's actually nothing, there's no proposal before them.
Yeah.
It's just we're selling the building.
right,
And that's why there's very specific language in there,
Yeah.
right? So ultimately, the GSA is gonna decide what it wants to put in there
right,
anyway. But
Right.
right, so this is why HPC said, council, do you want us to put approval in there or recommendations? Because they didn't want to make the decision to go to approval without blessing from council. They were very aware of the potential issue there.
yeah,
Um,
and.
but they had to meet their obligations,
Mhm.
right? It's like they can't
Understand.
just say, oh, we're gonna ignore these
I understand.
requirements.
So.
So-
Yep, I understand.
Mhm.
And so the next question though I have is like, so let's just say a developer comes in and they want, whatever the changes that they want to make, HPC will review that in relation to the Secretary of Interior's for rehabilitation and approve or make recommendations for the design review committee.
No, they
will
will approve or make recommendations, period, based on those rehabilitation standards, a copy of which has to be provided to me. I will then include it in any applicable zoning permits, applications before me. Right? Or it'll go basically in my file for that parcel. Because we can't conflate the two processes. I get a copy, right?
those minutes.
I read it on my phone.
If somebody comes to me, I'll say, hey, I know of this deed restriction. I staff HPC, you need to get on their agenda. You can submit your submit your application to me for the other, I'll review the zoning stuff separately. You have to see HPC. It's very similar to what we do for buildings in the Capitol complex where we do not have design review authority, but we have zoning authority over private property there. So I'm like, hey, I can approve X, Y, and Z changes under the zoning, but you also have to get Capitol complex approval. So make sure it's coordinated so that you don't have to come back to me to amend your zoning permit.
Can we just end our meeting?
Yeah.
So minutes are getting moved to the consent agenda on city council's next meeting. Is that how you're doing this for the May 2nd and
I
9th?
just read them.
Oh.
Or are you moving to
I have
pass them?
Got it.
Oh, okay, so,
Do I have them in my email now?
Yeah.
And they're like, 60-second read.
Great.
And then we can resume
Yeah.
the discussion. There's no reason to be recorded.
Sorry,
Yeah.
no.
all that stuff.
and this is, I have this the May 9th minutes.
Okay, I had
Really?
the agenda,
That's what
I
you
think
said.
said both.
Oh, there's another one?
I'm sorry, I don't have the minutes.
We displayed it.
The email, the minutes.
I
email
sent
to
them
us?
to
You did.
just now,
That is,
moments ago. Here they are.
Thank you. These are the minutes? Great.
They were.
I agree with these minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right.
I second them.
Oh.
Second them. Are we
So
gonna-
Ben moved?
Yeah.
Okay.
The minutes are first.
You wanna adjourn?
Is there anything else on the? agenda? The meeting is done.
All right, at 3:49.